Frances Perkins is perhaps one of the most important and yet least recognizable heroes in the history of American social reform, yielding credit to male historical figures such as Al Smith, Francis Townsend, and FDR. Perkins avoided the spotlight, preferring to focus her full attention on drafting and passing administration for Social Security, Fair Labor Standards, Federal Works Agency, and many others. Perkins was an ordinary woman with an extraordinary drive to help people live better lives.
No one of us knows on which one of us these hardships may fall, but certainly they will fall on some of us.
Frances Coralie Perkins, formerly known as Fannie Coralie Perkins, was the longest-serving Secretary of Labor, as well as the first female U.S. presidential cabinet member. Born in 1880 and raised by a small conservative family in Worcester, Massachusetts, Perkins grew up with a caring heart and a strong sense of justice. When she set out on her own, Perkins decided to study at the nearby Mount Holyoke College. While majoring in physics and minoring in chemistry and biology, Perkins took an American economic history class that would alter the course of her life forever. The professor of this class required all of her students to tour the mills along the river of a neighboring town. During her time there, Perkins got a first-hand look at what life was like as a working-class citizen in America. She was appalled by the lack of regulations put upon the labor of women and children. From the amount that they were paid to the hours they had to work, Perkins thought something was thoroughly not right with the working conditions these people had to live under. Her tour of the mills sparked a deeply rooted need to make change. She said, quote, "I had to do something about unnecessary hazards to life, unnecessary poverty. It was sort of up to me." Soon thereafter, Perkins moved away from home to New York, Albany specifically, where she met Al Smith and worked closely with him as the executive secretary of the New York City Consumers League. Suddenly, disaster strikes. On March 25, 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in Manhattan erupts in flames. Perkins rushes to the scene, only to find dozens of women jumping from the roof of the building to their deaths below.
I put my dress over my head, and I got myself on the roof. I met the firemen, and I had tears in my eyes. There was a distance from the roof to the top of the adjacent building. They had to hoist me up, and that's the way I got on the other side. And they brought me towards the stairs. I sat down on every stoop and cried till I was in the street.
The fire had ended as quickly as it began. In 18 minutes, 146 people, mostly young migrant girls, had perished in the flames. Investigators later found out that the doors to the factory had been locked shut by the managers Max Blank and Isaac Harris. Blank and Harris had refused to install basic safety measures like sprinkler systems and were widely known for their anti-worker policies.
Nobody cares. Nobody. 146 people in a half an hour? I have always tears in my eyes when I think of it. It should never have happened.
The aftermath of the Triangle Fire brought new fire and safety regulations, child labor laws, and an outcry for workers' compensation. The fire also helped raise awareness for working people and their growing labor movement. Perkins would later go on to say that this was the day the New Deal began. In October of 1929, the stock market, which had been at an all-time high, had started to fall. Soon, investors started to get nervous and were losing faith in the market. This lack of confidence leads to many investors pulling out their money, which then contributes to the unavoidable.
1929, Black Tuesday. The New York Stock Exchange is in a panic. Frantic investors have scrambled to unload their stocks at any price. Everyone wants to sell. No one wants to buy.
By 1933, around half of American banks had failed. The unemployment rate had skyrocketed to 25%. This begins the Great Depression. The Great Depression signifies a sinister and prominent mark upon America's history. America elected Franklin Delano Roosevelt to help stabilize the country's predicament. Among his cabinet were many people of great import, but one stands out among the rest when the gravity and permanence of their actions are taken into account.
She held up the piece of paper in her hand, and he motioned for her to continue. She ticked off the items: a 40-hour work week, a minimum wage, workers' compensation, unemployment compensation, a federal law banning child labor, direct federal aid for unemployment relief, Social Security, a revitalized public employment service, and national health insurance. Nothing like this has ever been done in the United States before, she told him. You know that, don't you? The man sat across from her in his wheelchair amid the clutter of boxes and rumpled rugs. Soon he would head to Washington, D.C. to be sworn in as the 32nd President of the United States.
If one of the best measures of a country is how it treats its more vulnerable citizens, then America has a lot to be proud of. Think about it. Before Social Security, too many seniors lived in poverty. Before Medicare, only half had some form of health insurance. Before Medicaid, parents often had no help covering the cost of care for a child with a disability.
But national security is not a half and half measure. It is all or none. Because it has become increasingly difficult for individuals to build their own security single-handed, government must now step in and help them lay the foundation stones.
These endeavors, these American endeavors, they didn't just make us a better country, they reaffirmed that we are a great country. And a great country keeps the promises it makes.
Frances Perkins was a woman who strived tirelessly to help the American people and make their lives better. Her selfless desire to put others' well-being before her own made her a truly remarkable altruist. In a world dominated by men, Perkins was able to work around the obstacles life threw at her and remained as kind-hearted as she was when she started her career. She was a vital part to guiding America out of the Depression and into a new era where no one had to worry about how their families would be taken care of should their job in any way be compromised. An individual so magnanimous as Perkins truly vanquished the limitations of her time and broke through the glass ceiling of the 1900s.